Game week 3 and possibly the most Barclays weekend of the season so far. Lots of box office moments for us to get our teeth stuck into. As always, welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. My name is Rory. I'm joined by my very good friend Adam. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, keeping very well. Trying to keep on top of all the events that happens. I'm sure it smacked us in the face anyway, regardless. But yeah, no, really good. How are things in Milan, more importantly?
I've just about managed to calm down. My head has just returned. So yeah, doing better than I was around 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon.
I'm sure.
But yeah, all good, man, all good. But lots to talk about this weekend. Of course, we're going to start at Old Trafford as Liverpool's becoming a regular occurrence. Liverpool breeze past Manchester United, and Erik ten Hag has a meltdown. We'll be talking about Haaland, 8 hat-tricks already, level with Thierry Henry in 69 games. Just the incredibleness of that man. Of course, we'll be going to the Emirates and talking about that red card. And of course, to finish, I think we'll have to go to Goodison Park to discuss the most Everton moment in Everton's history, possibly. And if there's time, we'll do a bit of transfer window wind-up just to cover all the deals and the last-minute sales and buys that were made just before the deadline. So, Adam, if you're ready, we're going to take a very quick break and we'll come back on the other side. We are back and it's time to talk about the Premier League. And let's start at Old Trafford as we have Manchester United 0, Liverpool 3. Should we start with the game? Should we start post-game? I kind of want to start pre-game, right?
Okay.
So obviously Ten Hag came out and said that Manchester United had been the second most successful team in England because they'd won the most. They won the most trophies apart from Man City since he took over. He was talking up his abilities, talking up his team. Gary Neville was quite strong in the fact that Manchester United had a better midfield than Liverpool. Adam, on the pitch, just how were all of these points proven wrong? It was kind of stark, the difference, right?
It was a bit of a masterclass, wasn't it, in terms of how to play your football. And I think what's becoming really obvious right now, and I don't know about you, but Erik ten Hag relies on individual performances as opposed to team performances or strategies in terms of games now. And in that particular game, Arne Slott kind of summarized it at the end of the game with his kind of nice kind of like review of how they kind of strategize against this Man United side. They knew that they were going to leave pockets of space, and it was all about being quick and being able to penetrate like with willing runners. And the most important thing that I felt was that you understood straight away what they were trying to get at. You know, within a couple of minutes, they identified quickly what they had to do, who they had to kind of target, and they got their results. And it was so easy, Rory. In the end, I think 3-0 flattered them because I felt Liverpool eased off the kind of gearbox when it came to actually doing those attacks in the end, because actually it could have been even more. And it was just down to hesitation from the actual players. But it was just too easy. And I suppose my point is, where do Man United and Erik ten Hag go from here? Because it feels like they've just been found out. Everyone knows now what to do against them.
Have we asked this question in the past 18 months on this podcast? Where do Manchester United go from here? It's incredible. It's just... It's incredible. I think, look, you look at the two teams. I'm in love with Arne Slott already. I'm just love what he's bringing to the Premier League. I love his energy. He comes across really well. The fact that he did just absolutely tear apart Manchester United in about 2 minutes in his post-match of like, this is how we knew they were going to play. This is how we're going to play, and it worked. If you looked at those two teams and you said one of these teams has had their manager for 3 years and one of them has had it for 3 days, people aren't going to guess right. And what I found really fascinating was, like, obviously Arne Slott coming straight in, he's just slightly tweaked what Klopp's done and just made it a little bit more like they're a little bit more possession driven now, right? So they're much more kind of trying to get control of the game, whereas Jurgen Klopp's teams very much thrived when there was no control in the game, right? They thrived on that like chaos. And I think he's just gone, no, we can still use that energy, that dynamism, the pressing, but at times, we can just control the ball, take our foot off the gas a little bit, and just see out a game. And as you said, that's what they did once it was 3-0. They went, okay, we don't need to run around like madmen for the rest of this game. We can just wait, patient, and see the game out. And I think throughout the game, we saw that tactically Slot was just miles ahead of Ten Hag, and Ten Hag's inability to address a problem. Because I think what happened now, obviously, the lightning rod for this game was Casemiro. And I'm not saying he had a great game, right? I'm not saying he even had a good game, but it says a lot that the third goal United conceded was almost identical to the second goal they conceded, because their midfielder was pressed. There was no one to pass the ball to. There's a too big a gap between the midfield and the defense. The defense are nowhere to be seen, and they score. And I think it's all well and good to drag a player off at halftime and throw on a player for his debut, which seems pretty harsh as well, to be fair. But if you're not going to adapt their tactical role, you might as well throw me in. Like, you could put bloody Valverde from Real Madrid or Bellingham off the bench and put them in there. But with that tactical instruction, they're going to make the exact same mistakes. He just didn't address the issue. And it sums up as well the lack of cohesion in the team, that even with the second goal, now it's a poor pass from Casemiro, right? But Mainu's not even looking at the ball. Mainu's just running off, right? Like, there's no communication, no connection between any of the players. And it's just, again, sums up the lack of idea at Manchester United. I still don't know what they were trying to achieve yesterday. Like, the first 12 minutes, they were all right. Maybe the first 10 minutes, they were okay. And you're like, okay, they're like, you know, keeping Liverpool at bay. They're kind of, you know, disciplined and structured.
Yeah.
Second they conceded, it all fell apart. And I just think from the bench, there's no hope for those players to even slightly improve, because there's no fucking clear idea. And you're coming up against a team that within three games knows exactly what they're achieving. It was so stark. And I kind of felt bad for Casemiro, because there has to be someone blamed, but he was far from like the worst player on the pitch yesterday. I think like he had a bad performance, but so did Rashford, so did Mainu. So like there was a lot of players there that, like Martinez, just absolutely clattering a Liverpool player like he always does for no reason, because he's been absolutely outclassed again. Like, I just think there were so many bad performances there. And the funny, like, how long is Ten Hag going to be in this job? Because the post-match conference as well, which we'll get onto, because bloody hell.
Special.
It feels like this might be the defining weekend of Ten Hag. Like, in 2 years' time, we'll be like, oh, do you remember that weekend when he just completely lost his shit and they lost to Liverpool? Like, can this go on much longer? Because Gary Neville was still saying, give him time, give him time, give him time.
I think they've come to a point where they realise that they can't keep on changing. However, I just don't think he's the man that you instill and trust to kind of bring that process together. Like, at no point do I feel that he's progressed any of the players in that 3-year tenure. Like, if you could name me one player that he's improved, I think the best that I've heard, argument's sake, was Diego Dalot. And I don't think it was because he was under Erik ten Hag's tutelage. It's because he went out on loan to Milan and developed his game there. So I don't think he even has improved those. I mean, yes, he's brought in a few of the younger players, but I think that's been forced. And I think he's had no choice. Garnacho, I don't think he's using to his best of his abilities. No. Like you've mentioned, Mainu has been lost. But if you're looking at Ten Hag and the whole piece, I think Radcliffe is going to give him at least until December in terms of see where they are in Europe. If they're nowhere to be seen in Europe again, then I think it's the end of the road, because they can't carry on with the same person at the helm. But at the end of the day, Rory, they gave him an extended contract as well. This was the same man that brought in his players by all accounts. And I just don't get it, because like we said in previous previews of the pod, you know, this was all about getting a strategy that works for Man United. None of those players seem to be a Man United signing. They seem to be more a Ten Hag strategy kind of signing. And unfortunately, I just don't see how it works. I don't see, even with the next manager coming in, whoever that be, regardless of how good they are ability-wise, I don't know how they can revolutionize it apart from maybe getting a style of identity, but they're still going to have to ship off those players. I think from a Man United perspective as well, when you're getting Mateus de Ligt being taken off for Harry Maguire, that must be the most excruciating thing to experience ever. Because even for me, I was like, right, they must be rubbing their hands, Liverpool, because they can sense another goal opportunity through this. And it's a total mess. It's a total like car crash. And I think we joked about it on previous week's podcast with Charles that actually, when we're saying head cases, you know, Chelsea and Man United are pretty level. When you look at how much they've spent in terms of transfer strategy as well, they're both pretty much on par as well. So that's the mad thing about it. Like, as much as we're saying that they haven't had the caliber of players, they spent that kind of quality of money as well. That's the worrying thing, you know. So I just don't know where you go from this, apart from you try and instill this kind of confidence that, you know, there's going to be something in the long term. But I don't think Erik ten Hag is your man. I think there was plenty of opportunities in the summer to have brought in someone who could have revolutionized the style of play. You know, there was links with De Zerbi, you know, Pochettino. I know he wasn't necessarily everyone's favored person, but I think those two candidates alone would have instilled something better than Ten Hag did yesterday. It was an absolute travesty. And yeah, like you say, Liverpool haven't even spent a penny in this transfer window, yet they look completely different in terms of style of football. They look like they've got an idea of how to deal with certain scenarios. And they were just so much more direct. They were just more direct with the ball. And that's the difference between the two. Like, there's an idea behind their concept. They know what they're doing. And even when they're dragging players, you know that following players are going to just kind of float in to other positions and take those positions and drive with it. Ryan Gravenberch, for example, was absolutely incredible.
This is wanted to be my next point. Is like we're going from a manager who every new signing is going to be the answer, right? And he's already pretty much thrown Ugarte under the bus and been like, well, he's not going to solve our problems, right? Oh, cheers, boss, right? Who didn't stick around to watch the game as well, by the way. Really odd decision. But anyway, we're going from a manager who's like, yeah, just one more signing, to a manager who his only signing is in a position that arguably they didn't need, right? It was an opportunity signing. I'm super jealous that Liverpool have got Chiesa. I always wanted him in an Arsenal shirt. I think when he plays, he will be very good.
Yeah.
But there's a manager there that for years, Liverpool have been like, we need a number 6, right? We need a number 6. Can we please just get a number 6? He hasn't, but what he's done is seen the player in his squad who most suits that role. And this is a player who Klopp, I don't think, ever really got the best out of. Gravenberch never looked massively comfortable. He never shone, really. Now, obviously, part of this will be like him getting used to the league, because last year was his first season in the Premier League, right? Part of this will be like his second season, you know, a bit more used to the league, a bit more comfortable. But also, Slott has got him there in that role, and he looked head and shoulders above everyone yesterday. Like his big frame, long legs, his ability to win the ball, his like when he was at Bayern Munich, obviously from Ajax, there was a lot of excitement, right? He never really fit in at Bayern Munich. It didn't really work for him. And it was very much a kind of another like gamble, kind of let's see if this potential comes out.
Sure.
And from the start of this season, it's really promising. The test for Liverpool in the future, as it will with all the teams, is when it starts to become 2 games a week. If he's your only option at number 6, and Endo, who I don't mind as a player, he's fine. If he has to come in, maybe there's that quality drop. So like they've had obviously an incredible start to the season, 3 wins out of 3. Not conceded a goal yet, right? Yeah, I think they got 3 clean sheets, right? So it's incredible for them. But I think going away to Old Trafford is not what it used to be. And I think Arne Slott didn't get carried up in the emotions of the game. I think in the past, Jurgen Klopp has been like, this is Manchester United away, you know, where he just went, these lot of crap, we'll just win this. And they did. And I think it was just absolutely men versus boys. So, yeah, incredible performance, incredible result from Liverpool. Manchester United, the post-match conference from Erik ten Hag, or just quickly before we move on, it's one of my favorite things, because I'm going to put the clip in here. But people comparing that press conference to the Mike Bassett clip from Mike Bassett, England manager, is just about my favorite thing in the world. You know, that moment where it's like, well, if you could tell me exactly what mistakes you were referring to, and then gives him 10 clear examples, Okay, yeah, no. Well, I disagree. Like, it just, he shrinks. It's incredible to watch, right?
It was. It almost felt like, you know, like those media managers, they try and say, this is the thing that you should say, and this is how you should play this scenario out. And that's basically what was the inspiration. Clearly, it was Mike Bassett, right? But it was just, it was gobsmacking as well. I think even the journalists themselves were probably wetting themselves in there thinking, what am I hearing that right? And then he compared himself to not being like Harry Potter, not being able to kind of mesmerically kind of magic up these kind of results as well. It was just absolutely baffling. But also, just one more point, Rory, I wanted to say at the end of the match, Mo Salah was also interviewed, and he also slips out that it was going to be his final year. And I wanted to ask, what was your thoughts? Do you think that kind of changes the direction of how Liverpool approach this season? And, you know, not necessarily for a negative. I think this is going to be possibly a positive in terms of they will drive it so that he can win something this season. But I do wonder where the direction is then going forward with Mo Salah. Is that an indication of, look, that's probably long-term strategy. They knew it was going to happen. And clearly this move was going to be a case of it'll happen this after this season, and they will evolve under Arne Slott. I mean, how's your impression of that kind of news dropping as well?
Well, there's three possible ways of looking at this, isn't there? Obviously, there was rumours that he was going to leave a long time. There was kind of the public, semi-public spats with Klopp towards the end. It looked like he wasn't particularly happy. The links with Saudi Arabia have been there for a very long time. It's generational wealth. I'm not really like, of course, right? Now, it could be that English isn't his first language and he's slipped up, and it's kind of been a little bit of like, and that's not to say his English isn't good, but, you know, you sometimes get phrases wrong where you don't say something how you exactly mean it. As someone who doesn't speak particularly well Italian, trust me, it's really hard to get across the nuance of what you want to say, right? So I think that's a possibility that he's just phrased it wrong when he meant to say it's the final year of my contract, not it's my last year, which mean the same thing, but have very different connotations, right? It's the final year of my contract, factual. It's my last year, I'm off, right? But they basically mean the same thing. It could also be a negotiation tactic for him being like, yeah, it's my last year here. So the board go, oh shit, right, we need to try and we need to kick off negotiations. We need to try and keep him here.
Yeah.
Or it could be that he's decided that he's going, and he's just decided to announce it in the most nonchalant way possible.
Possibly.
We won't know until the end of the season. But if I'm Liverpool, I'm offering him another two-year contract. Maybe he'd be after a 3-year contract, but I'd be offering him another 2 years with an option, maybe, because every time he takes his top off, you can see he's in incredible shape.
It's incredible,
right? He's not like your typical 32-year-old, however old he is. The performance yesterday and his performances throughout these first 3 games of the season, again, it's only 3 games, but it shows you that he's still very much at the top of his game or very close to it. And I think giving him it would give Liverpool that little bit more time to bring someone else in and bleed them into the team as that replacement. Now, maybe that could be Federico Chiesa if Chiesa really puts the fitness issues behind him and hits the levels that we know he's capable of. But if you can have Salah not playing every minute of every game, but have him as an option as he's getting a little bit older, I think you could really maximize that quite a lot. So I think Liverpool should be trying to tie him down, but I'm sure they'll be doing that anyway. It was a really interesting moment, but my initial thought was he's phrased it wrong, and he's just he's not said. What did you think?
I thought it was genuinely he's saying this is his last season. That's me personally. I don't think his English is that bad. And I think he knew what he was trying to indicate. I think that is possibly him saying, look, I've had some great years at Liverpool. I've achieved all I can, potentially. And look, you know, under this kind of stewardship, I don't think he has a bad word about Arne Slott. I think he just genuinely, for his family's sake, I think he just fancies a new challenge, and maybe Saudi might be the kind of place he goes to, you know, then he can settle down thereafter. He doesn't have to worry about the rest of his career. Then I don't think he's got much to prove, should we say, Rory?
No.
I don't think he's got a lot more. If there's an offer, like say, like a Real Madrid, I think he takes it up, for example. But I don't think those offers are going to happen now. I think that happened. Those rumors were like 3 seasons ago now. I think those offers have dried up since, and I don't know realistically who would be potentially entertaining a offer for him. I'm sure there'll be a lot of clubs, but whether they kind of meet his kind of aspiration, shall we say. So yeah, it'll be fascinating, but I think he definitely meant it in the way that he said it.
Well, one thing for sure, Barcelona will absolutely make an offer for him. I can guarantee
yeah,
that.
Sure.
Barcelona will absolutely.
They will fail to register him. That's the most important thing.
They will absolutely be after him. But let's leave that one there. Manchester United fans, you can start listening again now. You can unmute us.
Uncover your ears. Yeah.
We will move on to the London Stadium. West Ham 1, Man City 3. West Ham weren't that bad. I thought West Ham did quite well. They played pretty well, but none of it matters because RoboCop is up front, and none of it matters at all. Nothing matters anymore, Adam.
No.
What is it? 7 goals in 3 games. He's got more goals than some Premier League teams already this season. It's insane. What can we do to stop him?
Hope he gets injured. I think that's the best that any of us can really hope for. He's especially frustrating from a fantasy football perspective as well, Rory. But no,
are you non-Haaland?
I was non-Haaland because I had Haaland for the last 2 seasons. First season was great. Last season was inconsistent, and I wanted to balance the players up a bit more to divvy up the points, and it hasn't worked out. So that's why
I went with Haaland captain every single game. Let's just sit it out.
Yeah. I'm now trying to work out how I get him into my squad. And by that point, he'll probably get injured, knowing my luck. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, Man City really dominated the early exchanges of this match. And as you allude to, West Ham weren't terrible. However, it was those individual mistakes that really helped Man City kind of dominate the play and win this game. In particular, in that first half, I felt they really did struggle to cope with the constant pressure that Man City's midfield applied. And what probably didn't help them was the likes of Rico Lewis dropping into those central midfield roles as well, which kind of doubled up in terms of personnel into that box. And they just really struggled. I think Areola wanted to be off that pitch at halftime. I don't think he genuinely was injured or anything for that reason. But Mavropanos, I thought he had an absolutely stinker. He really struggled with the kind of constant tenacity of Man City's attacks. He was playing Haaland on for, in particular, the second goal as well. It amazes me, Rory, how also goalkeepers seem to be blown away by Haaland when he's running in on goal, because he always goes to the left of their corner when he's one-on-one. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but he'll always go to the left-hand side, yet they always seem to dive on the right-hand side. But what was pleasing from a Man City perspective, if we kind of turn it a little bit, Grealish being able to play from the start, I thought he was back to semi his best, but it did give me an interesting point, Rory, which I'll be interested to get your thoughts. Could we see Jack Grealish maybe develop his game into a Kevin De Bruyne? Because obviously there will be that kind of gap going forward. Obviously, Jack Grealish is struggling for game time down that wings position. But I think if he can be a bit more intelligent in terms of the way he kind of plays the ball sometimes, maybe thinks a bit more creatively, he could be that Kevin De Bruyne replacement. And should I dare say it, I think that would force a potential question mark for the England setup as well, because a play of that capability would be amazing. But it just came to me because the amount of times that I saw him float inwards, but he was also kind of dragging himself into that Kevin De Bruyne-esque kind of positions. The problem you've got, though, Rory, is because Kevin De Bruyne is there, he's taking those shots, he's taking those initiative kind of passes. And it got me kind of creatively flowing that there could be potential if Pep Guardiola could have entrusted him in those positions. I don't think he can do the whole game that Kevin De Bruyne offers, but certainly it got me thinking that maybe if Jack Grealish could rethink his game and maybe ask Pep to develop him, can you imagine what kind of player he could be?
I think it's interesting with Jack Grealish because I expect him to leave Man City fairly soon.
Yeah,
I think he's not gonna. Savio has come in, and that's the only reason why Grealish started is because Savio was injured, right, or he was ill. That's the only reason he started. I think Pep Guardiola, if a player isn't playing regularly by the second, third year, he tends to just sell them on. And they tend to just be like, okay, it didn't work. We can afford to get rid of this player now. And they go. So I think, unfortunately for Grealish, because it's not really any of his fault, I don't feel like it's his fault. His Man City career just hasn't really kicked on like it should. I don't see him in that De Bruyne role because I think there's many strengths to Grealish's game, but I don't know if his passing is as precise and as like range. If his range of passing is as accurate or is as like broad as De Bruyne's. I think Grealish's strength always has been and always will be running at people, beating them, cutting inside, getting a shot away, or getting the ball across the box, right? He's a kind of classic winger. He's an exciting player. It's just that Pep's made him frigging boring. And I think what Grealish needs now, and look, he's won the treble, he's won the league every year he's been there. He's going to be, we saw his celebrations, he's delighted, right? But I think for his career, I think at some point, he needs to go. The problem is they paid 100 million for him. They're going to want to recoup some of that.
That's the thing.
And with him not playing much recently, his stocks have dropped massively, I would say. Look, I'd still take him at Arsenal in a fucking heartbeat. But I think we might see that this is kind of, I don't see his Man City career getting better from here, unfortunately. We'll have these games where he plays and where there's moments, but I think I said it last season, Foden is going to be the player that turns into the De Bruyne because I think he's just much more rounded and he'll be De Bruyne, but who can also run at people and be a bit more like even more of an attacking threat, right? So it's a shame for Jack because everybody loves Jack Grealish, right? It was a good performance from him, but I just don't think we're going to see much more from him at City. The player I really love at City, and because I don't just want to talk about Haaland forever, but Rico Lewis is such an underrated footballer, such an underrated player. His flexibility in positions is incredible. The first game of the season against Chelsea, he was absolutely outstanding. Every position he plays in, he just seems completely comfortable, just technically insane. I think he's like he's one of the more exciting or more pleasurable players to watch at Man City. I think when I watch him play, I really like this guy. And I think it's a matter of time before he's a key player in the England team because he has to be getting in there regularly and getting starting spots at this rate because he's just absolutely outstanding. I think you nailed it right. Like that drifting from the defensive midfield back to the right back and then in the attacking areas. He just goes exactly where he needs to be. He's not uncomfortable in any area of the pitch. So really, really fantastic from him. Absolutely love him. So I wanted to give him some flowers. But for West Ham, it's just there's not much more they could have done, really. I think they played perfectly fine. Paquetá had some moments. The issue for West Ham is that they still haven't really addressed the centre forward position. Mikel Antonio, someone else we all love, right? Great goal celebrations when he scores. And Fulkrug, we've not really seen him start yet. He's not really had much of an impact yet. I still feel like this curse that West Ham have of strikers just continues. They will never, ever be able to find a striker that solves their problems. And when I was looking at this team, when I kind of, they do and it's live, whatever, and they're showing you the lineup,
sure.
I was like, oh, okay, defense, good. Like goalkeeper, good. Defense, good. Midfield looked good. Those three attacking midfielders, that's insane. Okay, striker, just how have they still not moved on? It's insane. It's been the last 6 years or 7 years. It feels like they've not moved on, right?
Yeah, I can't recall the last time. Maybe Jermaine Defoe is that the time we're talking like potentially prolific striker where they've had someone maybe to an argument's sake, maybe Carlos Tevez. I can't recall actually last time I've seen a West Ham striker being in double digits. It's been a long time, right? It's got to have been like. I may be saying out of like jest, to be fair, because I just can't recall it at the moment. And I think I kind of looks at their kind of attacking options and none of them look inspiring, like they could drag a defense. Like you said, Mikel Antonio, he should have been off the books, say 2 seasons ago, personally. I think he's been a stopgap and he works hard, as you allude to, but he's not that prolific striker that you need. And
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Füllkrug, I think they bought him on vibes. I don't think they did their homework on him, to be brutally honest. I don't think they really understood what he could do for them. They tried their best to get rid of Danny Ings in this window as well. You know, that says a lot, that they are struggling for some sort of threat up front. And I did kind of put this as my note, was actually, I think that's what's stopping them in terms of their ambitions to potentially push on as a club, because you look at most of the areas that they have, and I think they're well equipped. Unfortunately, it is in that attacking third where they're just lacking someone that can just put the ball in the back of the net and on a regular, consistent basis. Now, it doesn't have to be someone that is of a high caliber ilk, but it needs to be someone that is willing to get themselves into the box. You know, I just think, yeah, they've missed the boat in this transfer window. I really do think they should have done more to get someone in. And if it's not someone who's able to get the ball in the back of the box, it should be someone of that caliber, like a Mikel Antonio, but younger, who's got a bit more pace, who's maybe just starting to learn his trade as well. So potentially there could have been an opportunity there as well. But I know they were trying to get the likes of Armand Broja last year. They tried to get Ivan Toney this summer as well. It just hasn't transpired, has it really? And I think maybe the opportunity is they should have gone maybe into the Championship and had a look at the caliber of players there and taken a gamble. They did it with Jared Bowen, remember?
Yeah.
And it took them about 2 seasons before they actually figured out actually what his best position was. I think there was an opportunity there. They could have gone into lower leagues and got someone of that caliber. Unfortunately, I think they've missed the boat. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in January. Whether they'll address it, I don't know. The question mark as well is, will someone like Julian Lopetegui entertain that kind of caliber? I'm not too sure, Rory.
Well, it'll be interesting to see when Somerville starts getting moments. Maybe he could play down. Maybe he could play down the middle. Like, I know he tended to play. Last time he was in the Premier League, he played more out wide for Leeds, I think. But he's someone that, like, you know, he was Player of the Year in the Championship last year, right? Or he got a top scorer, maybe.
He was one of them, yeah.
And I think so. He's someone that maybe he's got that pace of Antonio. He's got that like directness. Maybe he's not quite as physically strong as Antonio, but it'll be interesting to see when he gets minutes, if that's possible. But I feel like with a winger like Bowen, he's more than capable of getting the crosses in for Füllkrug to get on the end of it. I just think it'll take him a bit. I think it would help maybe if he started the game. If you gave him a start and just see, like, you know, try and bed him in. But look, West Ham aren't going to judge their season by when they play Man City. So I don't think there's any massive issues here. This isn't a game that's going to define their season. So let's leave that one there, I think. Incredible Erling Haaland. Highlight was the hat-trick ball, and one of the players, I'm going to guess Grealish or John Stones, just wrote "fuck off" on the ball, which I did really enjoy. The previous one had "I'm sick of signing these balls," but this one, it was just a bit more to the point and just had "fuck off" in big letters written on it. So top quality banter there. Absolutely love that. Let's move on to Arsenal 1, Brighton 1. Right. This game, before we get to the moment, Arsenal need to get better at killing off games, because the first 20 minutes we were absolutely all over Brighton and we just could not score. If we get 2 or 3 goals there, this sending off is nothing but a footnote in the annals of history, right? Like, we should have been miles ahead in this game. We weren't. That is something we need to address. The goal from Kai Havertz was fantastic. Bukayo Saka's strength to get Lewis Dunk off the ball was incredible. Hell of a finish from Kai Havertz. Absolutely delighted. Everything's fine. But the first half, it was one of the maddest refereeing performances I'd seen in my life. And I'm not even getting to the sending off, right? Every 50-50, like, Arsenal would... there was 2 instances where Kai Havertz went up for the ball against their defender. Instantly, it was a free kick to their defender, right? Then João Pedro would do the same to Saliba, play on. And it was there was just zero consistency in any decision. And I'm sure Brighton fans would be able to point out ones that went our way with zero consistency, right? It was a mad refereeing performance. There was the tackle from Jakob Minte where he injures Odegaard. Now, I don't think it's a red card, but letter of the law, you go in with your studs up when someone's leg is planted in the ground and you hit him in the leg. Letter of the law, that might be a red card, right? So there are if we're going to go for this letter of the law theory, which everyone seems to be obsessed with, this is how I'm going to go at it, right? The first Declan Rice booking, absolutely yellow card, nailed on, no problem. The end of the half, just before he blows the final, and he actually blew the final whistle, the halftime whistle, so he didn't have to make a decision. Hinshelwood flies through the back of Saka, drags him down to the ground for the 5th time in the half. Rather than actually making a decision, the ref just blows the whistle. Hinshelwood runs down the tunnel. He doesn't have to deal with it, right? I'm now used to the fact that players can just do what the fuck they want to Saka and nothing's ever going to happen. Fine, whatever. We'll just deal with it. Saka gets up. He keeps going. Whatever. That moment in the second half, to start with, Declan Rice was stupid, right? He flicks the ball away. I absolutely get it. But the problem for me, you see that a million times every single game. Every single game, a player flicks the balls away, throws the ball, does that thing where they hold it and run off, all the little tricks, and it's never punished, right? Never punished. João Pedro does it in the first half, no punishment, right? For that to be a second yellow, for me, is absolutely ridiculous. That is nothing but the referee wanting to be the centre of attention and give a red card. There's no other justification for that. In the last game, we had Aston Villa Arsenal, 2 players belt the ball at each other, right? Both players could have been booked. Arguably, you know, it could have been a second yellow for McGinn, whatever. The ref didn't. He went in, he talked to everyone, calmed the situation down, get on with it, right? In that instance, I don't even think it's a free kick in the first place. It's not a foul, right? He throws the ball at Rice. Rice does flick the ball, but it's rolling, so it can't be a restart. And then Veltman just belts him in the legs, and Rice gets sent off. I just think it's absolutely insane. I could not believe what I was seeing. And it's another one of those red cards that will only ever happen to Arsenal, right? Do you remember Martinelli, 2 yellows in the same move when they were cracking down on that?
Yeah.
Never happened to any other team, right? Tomiyasu booked for a 5-second handball, for a 5-second throw-in, and then for Ayew diving, Tomiyasu sent off. That was never seen again, right? Like, all these happen, these rules, and I know I'm biased, but they seem to get implemented against Arsenal, and then we never hear from them again. There will not be another player this season that gets a second yellow for kicking the ball away. It will just not happen. The international break will happen, and this new edict that Howard Webb has come up with will be completely forgotten, and it'll just go, oh yeah, it's funny because that happened to Arsenal, isn't it? And now we miss Declan Rice for the fucking North London derby. Like, I just, you, even if you are of the opinion that, no, the law is the law, Declan Rice should have been sent off. We played for 40 minutes of that game with 10 men, right? And now we get another 90 minutes without Declan Rice for him flicking the ball away. There should be, like at World Cups or Euros, where you can look at a red card afterwards and go, okay, right, is this actually worthy of a 1-match ban? Because he's getting punished harsher than a player who would have, like, it just blows my mind. And that's my rant over, but I'm not even going to get onto the Brighton manager. Like, I just thought it was insane, and Chris Kavanagh can go fuck himself. Like, how did you see it, Adam?
I was just going to say, this therapy session was brought to you by Pogmore, but
I just can't deal with it, honestly.
Yeah, so this is an interesting interpretation. Unfortunately, it is interpretations from referees, as you alluded to, and it's the consistency that is really bad when you contrast this across the season and in various different matches, unfortunately. In that very incident, I would say Declan Rice has the intelligence to know that he's giving an opportunity to Chris Kavanagh to give him the opportunity to send him off, unfortunately. And whether you feel it's harsh, unfortunately, there was a crackdown at the beginning of the season to these players. They were well briefed on this. You could see even Danny Welbeck kind of alluding to it.
And letter of the law asking for a player to get booked is a fucking booking. And there was 3 Brighton players going, give him a yellow, give him a yellow.
But yeah, this is where obviously you need to ensure that, like for that João Pedro incident, that is also a yellow card. And unfortunately, I don't understand why Chris Kavanagh kind of sees it as he's maybe trying to control the ball or trying to get away from the halfway line in that respect.
My first touch isn't that bad. Come on. Like, that's insane.
I just think, unfortunately, Declan Rice was going by the wire. He was going on a really thin line at that very moment, and he gave him an opportunity, unfortunately. And that, you know, given kind of how important he is to the squad, he needs to refrain from it. He's going to, definitely from this experience, he's going to know that never to do that. He knows never to tread that line ever again. But I get your frustrations. I just think there has to be an agreement across the refereeing association that what that level is. Is it from that kind of incident that every incident then should be judged the same way? And that's the problem. Unfortunately, I don't know what goes on in those meetings thereafter those matches when they assess those referees and looks at those incidents and goes, right, that was the right decision, right? We heard so many times last season how Howard Webb would come out and explain these decisions, but you don't hear that anymore. You don't hear what they're doing. And I do wonder what the kind of feedback is. And that's going across the board. It's not just to someone like Chris Kavanagh. It's across the board is what the level of interpretation should be.
I just can't take the fact that we saw fucking Joe Linton choke slam a goalkeeper, and it was a yellow card. Kai Havertz got pinned to the ground by his throat by Mosquera and then got fingered, and it wasn't a yellow card. Like, I just, thank God you're cracking down on kicking the ball away. Heaven forbid you actually punish someone for getting strangled. Like, I can't deal with the complete inconsistency of it. And just, if you're going to say letter of the law, if you're going to say, right, we are going to apply every law literally now, right? Every corner and free kick is either going to result in another free kick or a penalty, because every single instance there is pushing, there's pulling, there's shirt pulling. Letter of the law, there should be a penalty every single corner, right? Letter of the law, 3 Brighton players should have been booked there because they were all asking for Declan Rice to get it. Like, if you're going to apply it literally, fine, go for it. But I just know that after the international break, it's all going to be forgotten. And every player, even by Liverpool United, it was forgotten. And there was players throwing the ball away after free kicks because it happens all the time. It's just when the margins are so bloody small in this league and a draw feels like a loss, you're going, come on, guys. Like, you can't, there has to be some kind of agreement here of what we're actually punishing. And then if the referees then say, okay, oh God, Chris Kavanagh's just made that decision, well, then we all have to apply those laws across the rest of the games this weekend. Like, there has to be a concerted effort of, okay, well, now we have to make sure that there's a consistency across this level of fixtures because he's just done that, right? They can all see the clips. They can all see the highlights. Like, I think it's just the fact I know that it will only affect us this season, that kind of law, and it's just incredible. But if we talk about the actual game, I feel like Arsenal did pretty well. We probably should have won it. I was really impressed by how we managed to stay in the game. The 15 minutes after Rice got sent off, we were atrocious, and I was waiting for us to concede 2. I think there was just mentally we completely lost it. I think the players obviously were very, very angry, a bit confused, and Brighton should have scored 2 probably. Our defending was woeful for their goal. Thomas Partey off the ball. I want him out of the club for many reasons, but I cannot wait for that man to get out of the fucking club. Him against Tottenham genuinely terrifies me. But I thought Calafiori, when he came on, was fantastic. If it wasn't for a world-class save for Bruggen, Havertz probably wins the game for us. I think there was still enough there to be like, okay, bad day at the office, but it was out of our control. I think on another day, we win that game fairly comfortably. There's just been too many of those red cards over the past couple of seasons that it rattles me. I get PTSD to fucking David Luiz getting sent off for getting kicked. Like, there's just so many of them.
Do you think, though, also, just as a result of that Declan Rice incident, that Arteta managed the moment as well as he could have? I'm just wondering in terms of personnel, whether he made the right substitutions. And it does give you a bit of a dilemma going into that North London derby. And I was just thinking to myself, would there be an opportunity to have someone like a Jurrien Timber to take his role? Because we know about the short like aspects with Partey. I know Jorginho is likely to be the candidate that replaces him, but then you think about the style of football, it really doesn't kind of combine very well as a fluid style, whereas Jurgen Timber could potentially, if you're talking about a player that's more adaptable to that role, could maybe play an important role to make it more fluid and in sync with the Arteta style of football.
Yeah, I would like to see Yuri and Timber put in there, to be honest. I don't think Arteta will, because it's a big gamble for a big game. I think we'll probably see Jorginho and Partey, which I'm not particularly excited about in terms of the fact that Spurs are quite quick. But I would like to see Timber in that. And what concerned me was, I think maybe we haven't been practicing on the training pitch enough what we do when we go down to 10 men, because it was just, there was a bit of panic stations. But the second he brought on Calafiori, I think it just calmed down, and everything was like, I never really felt like we were going to lose at that point. I was like, okay, yeah, we'll just get a draw here. Maybe we'll nick one. So I think it just took us a bit too long to adjust to that setback, but I think part of that was the emotion of the moment as well. So I'm not too worried about it, but I'm really excited to see Calafiori actually starting games at some point. Obviously the Marino news is just really fucking irritating, because we could really do with him now, but that's just bad luck. It's just pure bad luck. And Gabriel maybe needs a word of, like, you know, in training, don't injure our new player. That would be nice.
That'd be nice.
But yeah, we'll see. There's a couple of weeks before the North London derby. I'm not unconfident. Like, I still think we're good enough to beat them. It's just a bit of a setback. But let's leave Arsenal Brighton there. I never want to think about it again. And we're going to go for, sorry for my rant. Genuinely, I thought I'd keep it to under a minute, but I definitely didn't. We're going to go to the most Everton moment ever. Now, Adam, I put this game on to try and, like, torture myself. And then I saw Everton go 2-0 up, and I was like, oh, this isn't. I'll just switch around to the other games. And then the simulcast started to focus on Goodison Park. So it's Everton are the first team to be 2-0 up in the 87th minute and lose the game. Everton Twitter this week has been absolutely outstanding. My favorite, do you remember Mike Parry? He's famous for the cinnamon challenge.
Doing the cinnamon challenge, and doing a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon, right? So, and it goes all over the place.
His tweet of mine was my personal favorite from Everton Twitter this weekend, as he posted a picture of what looks like a pretty ropey spaghetti bolognese, I'll be honest. I've never been so badly knackered by my team losing. At 87 minutes, the mighty Everton were 2-0 up, and my spaghetti bolognese was being cooked. At 96 minutes, we'd lost 3-2 and my spag bol was served. I couldn't eat a mouthful. It's been thrown away. I downed the Chianti. I think that just about sums up where Everton fans are mentally. Then their Twitter feed decided after the game, remember to share your matchday photos and help tell the story of our final season at Goodison Park. Now, this might be the most tone-deaf tweet I've ever seen. The responses are outstanding, mainly pictures of men drinking bleach. But my favorite is the classic meme of the guy with the crowbar attacking the other guy. So it's Everton being really shit, me just trying to have a nice fucking weekend. And it's just absolutely, it's the peak Evertonness of this. We're going to talk about Bournemouth, but if we look at it seriously, you're 2-0 up at home, you're playing really well, you're genuinely looking comfortable. Why was it so fragile?
I think they just sat back. That's the only kind of genuine kind of reason and rationale I can give, unfortunately, because like you say, they were in control of the game. There were some shaky moments before the goal started. You know, there was no command of the box. They didn't seem some kind of control from a central defensive perspective, as well as Jordan Pickford. You know, he was coming out trying to punch at the balls. And in particular, obviously, he's at fault for the final goal in that respect, coming out in the manner that he did. But it was just the fact that I think one of the players that has been highlighted as being maybe a bright spot for Everton, that's Areg Boonham, who they bought in from Aston Villa as part of their PSR transfers. Good player by all accounts.
I'm surprised he's actually quite good.
He is very good. Okay. He was very good. Unfortunately, however, you could see for one of the goals, I think it was Cook's goal, where they showed his running pace versus Cook and the desire of Cook to run in the box, whereas Arregabunum was just shattered at a point. He'd been so overrun. And I think the question marks really lie somewhere in between. It's a combination of the players, but it's also maybe Dyche. I think maybe he didn't really see that situation really playing out. And I don't know, when you look at the kind of players he has available to him as well, from a bench perspective, there's not a lot of quality, unfortunately, that he's got available. But you would expect someone like a James Garner to potentially come on, add some kind of pace and intensity, and just keep the game flowing. Unfortunately, Rory, with the greatest respect to that defensive line, I don't think that's the strongest defense in the Premier League. And unfortunately, when you've got Michael Keane central to that as well, that is a worry. He's not been a favourite of mine. Mikulenko as well, he tries hard. I think that's why they love him down there. I think he gives it his all. Unfortunately, he's not the quality. Seamus Coleman in particular, I think, for one of the goals.
He should have scored as well. He had a chance where he should have scored as well. He was very unlucky. But yeah, he got out.
This is the problem. Seamus Coleman is probably 2 seasons ago should have retired or like moved on to a championship team. He shouldn't be at that level, should he, realistically? Unfortunately, they're in a circumstance where they can't replace these kind of players. And Seamus Coleman is someone that is going to evoke at least some kind of fight within the side. Unfortunately, he just hasn't got the qualities now that I feel suit Everton in the Premier League. And unfortunately, they are going to be, like you kind of alluded to, I think, a few weeks ago, where they're going to be hovering. They're just going to be that Newcastle Sunderland team that just hovers above the relegation zone season upon season, and then it will happen. Unfortunately, Rory, I think that season might be this season. It does feel inevitably like that's going to happen because they can't see out games. In that example, they should have won that game. It's only because they let the opportunity to Bournemouth sniff it, and they go, right, we've got them on the ropes. We can get another goal. And inevitably, even once they got the equaliser, that was it. They just peppered their goal.
Well, the second they got one, the second Bournemouth scored one, I think everyone in the world went, they're going to win this. Like, I'm sure I would have loved to have seen the odds the second Bournemouth got a goal, how they would have just gone like fucking evens. Like, the changeover would have been like...
Because the bookies went, oh shit.
Everyone in the world went, oh, Everton are going to lose this now. It's so fucking obvious. And like, it was Mags. It just felt like Kluivert went, oh, okay, I can play now. And then all of a sudden just absolutely tore them to pieces. He'd been anonymous the rest of the game, but just all of a sudden woke up and was like, yeah, let's just tear them apart.
There was no pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I think it's just the concern, obviously, for Everton fans is like the mental fragility there and the fact that Sean Dyche, his teams, if they lose, they don't lose by big numbers. And, you know, they keep themselves in games. They target the right games. And it's just... yeah, it's really, really, really big warning signs for Everton. And I think even players like Ndiaye looked good before he came off, but you take a winger off, that's not going to cost you the game. There's just that real lack of quality. And the defense just is far too porous. And Pickford made some world-class saves. Like, it could have been 4 or 5 to Bournemouth as well. Like, it really wasn't. It wasn't close by the end of it. Like, he made some really big saves. So I think just what can you say for Everton? I feel really bad for the fans. Every weekend is just like this club was made.
Same old story.
Someone who's like, I'm not even angry at the players. I'm not angry at the owners. I'm angry at my fucking dad for making me support these pricks. Like, it's just everything's like a social experiment to torture people. Like, it's just unbelievable. I feel. But it feels like a vicious circle at this point, doesn't it? Bournemouth, incredible character to come back. Just one of those, they've had quite a slow start to the season, but that could be the moment where they go, boom, we're here. Like, let's kick on and go, right?
Look, they've got more points than they did at the same point last season. They're unbeaten in the league now as well. So this is going to go and galvanize them. I think there's a really interesting project there as well. When you look at the caliber of players they brought in this summer, Ivan Nilsson, we didn't see the best of him, unfortunately, this Saturday. But, Dean Huijsen as well, we know about his credentials. I just think there's genuinely a good project there with the right manager, a player or manager that's going to get the best kind of philosophy out of them. But like I say, this is almost like a bump in the road that they needed sometimes, just to bring back reality. And look, I think that's good response from Bournemouth, good kind of test of their mentality. And yeah, they will definitely push on from this, Rory. But yeah, I do worry about Everton, Rory. This is just, I don't know where it ends.
I think I've got an idea. It's going to be exciting to see where Bournemouth do get this year, because obviously post Solanke and stuff, it'll be interesting to see how they get on. I think they could really push on because there's a lot of quality in that squad. Just very quickly to go through the rest of the weekend, Nottingham Forest drew 1-1 with Wolves. Leicester lost at home 2-1 to Aston Villa. Ipswich got their first points in a draw against Fulham. Hell of a goal from Delap there. Absolutely beautiful goal.
Good goal.
Brentford beat Southampton 3-1. My one takeaway from this is the Southampton goal was bloody lovely. Outside of the foot finish off the post, unfortunately, is the most pointless goal in history. And Southampton need to stop playing out from the back. I think Ramsdale might concede 100 goals at this rate. Chelsea, in my prediction, was correct. It was a flash in the pan, drew 1-1 with Crystal Palace. And Newcastle beat Tottenham 2-1. Hilarious own goal by Dan Burn. But Isak shows his quality again to get the 3 points for Tottenham. Tottenham really should have won that game with the amount of chances they created. They just cannot finish. And long may that continue on a personal note. But that is the Premier League weekend. Before we go, we wanted to very quickly talk about transfer business. Adam, a deal that caught your eye in the transfer window that isn't Raheem Sterling, because I'm going to talk about that one.
I don't know what has been the kind of side. I think I'm going to have to be all Italian here. It has to be Chiesa. I knew there was a sense that he would come to the Premier League. However, that is a hell of a bargain for 15 million. And I know there is things that might kind of pepper this kind of transfer in terms of like his injury history, etc. But if you can get a player to play that he can, this could be a hell of a bargain and a hell of a potential within Liverpool for their season as well. So I'm going to stick my head out and say Federico Chiesa. What about for you?
I'm super excited to see him in the league. I'm really excited to see him in the league. He's cheaper than Jay Stansfield. Let that sink in. I think he could really, like, once he gets on the pitch, I feel like the Premier League will suit him really well. I'm excited to see him in the Premier League. Like I said at the top of the show, I think I really wanted to see him in an Arsenal shirt. But I'm excited for Liverpool fans because I think he will absolutely give everything when he's on the pitch. For me, it's obviously Raheem Sterling. I think I'm really excited about this signing. When the story started to come out, obviously at the beginning of this window, I wouldn't have said, get me Raheem Sterling from Chelsea, right? I'm not
sure.
That's not the case. But as the window went on and, Nico Williams wasn't available, no attackers were bought in the window at all. Like the attacker market was really quiet, really difficult to get people in. I feel like he was just a very clever piece of business. We're not paying much of his contract. There's no obligation. So if it works, good. If it doesn't, good. He can go. Like Arsenal have no minuses from this deal, from what I can see. I think reuniting him with Mikel Arteta, they've both openly said they enjoy working with each other. Raheem Sterling credited him with like the best goal scoring season he had. Obviously, he's been hit and miss at Chelsea, but I'm not judging any player like at Manchester United. I'm not judging any player by how they play at that club because look at it. And I think he's a player that just adds a little bit of experience, that winning mentality, and such a great option. He can play all across the front three. I'm super excited about it. I think, and he's got a point to prove. He wants to piss off Chelsea and he wants to get back in the England squad. And I think a player with that much drive and in this team that is really driving towards something, I think it could be quite special. So touch wood, I'm really excited about that deal. The one that concerned me was the lack of business at Newcastle very quickly. It seems like a bit of a mess behind there now. The director of football wasn't able to get the targets. There was a disagreement with Gahey. It looked like Steve Parish was winding them up the entire time. It's all kind of giving Mike Ashley vibes in terms of like the just lack of relationships at the top of the club, right? Everyone's really angry and it's all unclear again.
They're angry at each other as well. I think that's the kind of theme that I'm getting right now, because a lot of the Newcastle fan base are having arguments openly on social media about the fact that this could be the moments where the ambitions kind of suddenly hit that kind of financial piece, and they'll be forced to sell the likes of Isak next summer. They'll have to sell them on because, unfortunately, their ambitions and where they lie in the table won't be the same as where the players' aspirations are. And that's the fear factor, I think, for them. Look, Eddie Howe has done a sterling job, but I think the element of his job is to kind of do the best on the budget that he's got given to him. And unfortunately, I think he is at a point in his career with this club where he's going to have to manage that to the best of his ability, whilst other clubs can spend that vast amount of money. But yeah, I would go personally for Southampton, because I thought they would be a bit more shrewder in this transfer window. They bought in Ramsdale, which is no kind of disparagation on him, unfortunately. However, I don't think that money was spent wisely. They need a proven goal scorer. They need some more midfielders. Their defense was an absolute joke. It was like being at the circus with Jan Bednarek and obviously Jack Stevens as well, trying to do their cameos in terms of assisting Brentford over the weekend. So I think, and I fear for Russell Martin, because I think he's a really nice guy and I think he tries to play it the right way. However, unfortunately, I don't think on this occasion you can get away with just playing this style of philosophy. You have to grind out results. You have to learn to adapt to this league. And unfortunately, I don't know if those players can do that. I just think they're just very weak. And inevitably, I think they'll be the favourites to go down this season, Rory.
I've not seen anything to make me change my preseason prediction, honestly. It's a shame for Saints fans, because I felt like they've already referenced the atmosphere at the stadium being a bit flat, because everyone's like, oh, we remember this last time. All getting PTSD from their last season in the Premier League. So I don't know, I think it's going to be a long season for them. But guys, that is us this week. The Premier League has taken a bit of a break because why not? So we will be back with some international football. I think at some point we'll figure out the plan, round up the Nations League and qualifiers, whatever the hell's happening. I don't know. But make sure to join us. Make sure to check out our Serie A show as well if you love all things calcio. Adam, anything to say before I send these people home?
I was only going to mention the Serie A podcast, but otherwise, keep in tune with our social media channels as well. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe onto them as well. Really appreciate it.
Beautiful. And to find all of them, you can find us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. Hit the like and subscribe button. Give us a follow on your podcast app of choice. Give us a rating. Have a good week. We'll see you next time.